I trust you guys have had opportunity to review everything in our consent agenda. Unless there are questions or corrections, I would need a motion for that.
Well, are we approving which overnight trip are we approving?
Just the Austin one.
Right,
The
no,
other
the other one is in
Is in this one, that's what I was.
Correct.
I'll take over the consent agenda, and I move that we approve as posted.
Second,
Second.
all in favor? 100%, thank you. All right, let's move into our action items. This is Lily Spurcheck.
I made a PowerPoint to show you guys what the kids do when they get ready to go to Europe. This year, we're going to work on Italian the next few months before we leave for Europe. We're going to fly into Paris, and they have this in front of them, correct? Okay. What I did was basically do an outline of the destination places that we're going to be at during the trip. And then this year, we have the pleasure of including Mount Pleasant History Club. And we are taking 13 students and 2 sponsors. And both of the sponsors are teachers that teach social studies there. That's Pal Tigert and Jamie Craig. We're going to be leaving from Dallas. We're going to take a charter bus from the school. And from Dallas, we're going to fly to Paris. And in Paris, we will be there for 2 days in time to see the Louvre, the Eiffel Tower, Notre Dame. And usually this time of year, which is March, Notre Dame will have their choir practicing for Easter, and it's usually incredible. I've taken kids there before. We're going to try at night to go on a river cruise on the Seine River, and they'll get to see the Eiffel Tower all lit up at night, and they'll see the mini statue of Liberty that was created in France, along with many of the other attractions of palaces and things that are there. From there, we're going to take a train to Milan and see some of the Domos there. And from Milan, we're going to go to Florence. And in Florence, we're going to see the Duomo, which is historic there. We're going to see the old bridge is what it's called. And then we're going to take a day trip to Pisa and see Pisa, because it's one of the oldest cities there on the coast. And the Apennine Mountains are incredible as you're driving through. And from there, we're going to go to Rome. And in Rome, we're going to go to all the places that I've taught them in history. We're going to go to the Colosseum, and we always stand there in front of the cross that is basically symbolic of the stopping of the persecution of the Christians when Constantine has his enlightenment. And then we're going to go to the Roman Forum, and basically there they'll have the Temple of Vespus, and they'll have basically where they met for democracy in the Forum. The floor there is incredible. It's still intact, and has a huge, huge floor done in tile, a mosaic tile that is beautiful. And from there we'll climb up the steps where they had Paul captured, and we'll end up in Vatican City. And in Vatican City we're going to see the museum and a lot of artifacts that are there from many of the famous painters and the popes. And then we're going to see the Sistine Chapel. Of course, we'll see the ceiling and the 7 eras of Christ. And we'll see the side walls, which are painted by Botticelli, and it has the story of Jesus' life. And from there we go into St. Peter's Cathedral, and it is magnificent. The letters that you'll see on the slide are 7 feet tall, and yet they look minute when you're looking at the picture. And then this year we're going to end up going further south, and we're going to go to Sorrento, and we're going to take an island cruise to Isle of Capri. And I'll show you the slides. There's a lot of them because the kids researched them and we did them together, but I'll go through them really quickly so you have an idea of what they're going to be exposed to. This being the Isle of Capri, we're going to start in Paris, and they'll get to see this basically from the Eiffel Tower. I printed that picture because it was easier to see for the kids' sake what all they see from the Eiffel Tower. We're going to basically go to the center of that's basically where they have all the theaters of art and the old, I can't think of the name of the house. It'll come to me. It'll be on another slide anyway. From there, they're going to go to Vendôme, and they're going to see that right there had been brought over from Egypt. And it has hieroglyphics on it. And just the marvel of being able to carry it across the Mediterranean Sea and have it in Rome. And the areas, I mean, not in Rome, in Paris is incredible. And from there, they're going to basically tour the city and see what it's like. We spend a day where we kind of drive around on a charter bus, and they basically get to see the centers of town, where the theaters are, where basically the palaces are. They don't get to go to Versailles because we picked Pisa, Versailles, and those are extras that cost money. This is another palace that's there, and they'll get to walk around. That's one of the very first things that we do there. They go to the Louvre, and everything that's in our history book and everything else, I can expose them in art. From the time of Mesopotamia and the cradles of civilization all the way up to modern times, you'll see. We kind of run around. Everybody wants a picture with Mona Lisa, and then we try to hit most of the art. The second day, when we have free time, parents go off with their children, the parents that are going, but the kids and I usually go back because there's no way to see everything in the Louvre.
In a month.
No, there isn't. And you can run around and you think, and I try to make sure to hit all the things that I've always told the kids about or they've seen in pictures, but there's still not enough time. It is incredible. Eiffel Tower, the same thing. We go to the top. The Arch of Triumph, where we go because we study Napoleon, and they get to see the arch, and it's basically symbolic to the arches that they're going to see in Rome. Notre Dame is beyond. You walk in there and you're in the Middle Ages. The candelabros have been turned into lights, and usually when we go, they have this incredible holy choir playing in the background, and it just sets the mood. You can't have an experience like that at all. From there, we're going to go to Milan, and that's the Duomo of Milan. And from there, we're going to travel to Florence. And in Florence, they'll see the next few slides, which are the Duomo and the old bridge. The old bridge was burnt once and then rebuilt, and it's about 800 years old now. The first one was wood. That's part of the Duomo, the incredible doors that are there, and just basically all the frescoes on the walls. From there, they go to Scala. And this is what Florence looks like from one of the hilltops, and I usually make sure right before sunset that we come up to the hilltop and we look at how beautiful it looks. And that's also the old bridge, Ponte Vecchio. And we go to the Plaza della Signora, and we walk around there, and the kids basically see how much influence Rome and Italy and Greece, because they're all mixed together, has to our culture today. And then Pisa, we're going to go to. I have never been to Pisa. I'm really looking forward to it. The second day that we're in Florence, those are where parents have an option to do what they would like, and those that want to go to Pisa with me, go with me and Miss Lee and Mr. Lee and so on. And the kids did all the research on Pisa. And then this is what they see. When you're traveling by bus from Milan and Florence down toward Rome, the Apennine Mountains are breathtaking. And then we finally get to Rome. And this is part of the Roman Forum, the area down that's been excavated. And it's kind of down low because it's been covered through the years. And anywhere you go in Rome, they have a new artifact or a new dig or something going on. And they're always discovering something new. The Colosseum. The Colosseum has 3 phases. On this side, it's pretty intact. And at night, I have a picture that's really nice to see it. On another side, there'll be one less layer, and another side is kind of skeletal because it's been through earthquakes, and because after the fall of the Roman Empire, when the Visigoths and the Ostrogoths and all the different Germanic tribes are going through, they stole all the ivory and marble off of it. This is Vatican City. This is St. Peter's Cathedral. This is the Swiss Guards, and this is part of the museum inside of Vatican, and that's just talking about the different things that they'll see in there. Bernini, Botticelli, all sorts of. The Vatican Museum, the ceiling alone isn't a work of art. So I try to show you guys what the feeling is. There is paintings and frescoes everywhere on the walls. And they'll get to see the different areas. And then they'll see the Holy See and the room of the Holy See. And basically that's what it looks like. And this, I don't have a picture that I could take where you could see it all, but what's really cool about being in Rome is that you'll have the Christians represented, and right next to it you have a mosque, and right next to it you have a synagogue, and everybody works together. All the monotheistic religions are there together. That's the Basilica at night. And this is something that I cannot take a picture, and maybe Mr. Chambers took a better picture. The altar inside of the cathedral is incredible.
It's hard to take a picture in there because the lighting is not what it needs to be in order for your picture to take right. But we took some pretty incredible pictures of
Did
it.
you? Yeah, that to me is incredible. The Pieta's in there, and the kids will walk, and those letters that you see in gold are 7 feet tall, if you can envision the grandeur of that building. 16th Chapel, they'll see the frescoes also. Michelangelo actually went blind, or almost blind, in painting that. He did it for 4 years. Okay. Keep going. Colosseum, we can skip to, that's just another picture. They basically go to the Trevi Fountain. The Trevi Fountain was first an artesian well that the city got water with, and then one of the popes created the fountain around it. I love this because in all of history, this is a Pantheon. It does not have one stitch of iron in the whole building, and it has lasted through time. It has a dome in the middle that creates the perfect lighting for the inside. And architects even today marvel how it stayed together without any kind of rebar or steel or anything else. The Spanish Steps, we always walk up to the top. And then they're going to go to Sorrento, and it's on the coast, and this is what it looks like. It's a little fishing area. And they're going to go to the Isle of Capri on a water cruise. And they want to do this because they want to see the ocean. That's also Capri. And I'm really looking forward to this, Pompeii. I have never been to Pompeii. I did talk to Mr. Chambers, and he told me about the warehouses of artifacts and how realistic it is and frozen in time. So the kids and I are looking forward to seeing that. They've known the history in Mount Vesuvius. And that's it. I've taken them before. We usually stay at hotels. We put the adults between them. My husband only has the job of waking up the boys in the morning, and I usually wake up the girls. And we start our day usually about 5 o'clock in the morning, have breakfast, and we walk and we walk and we walk all entire day long. And the trip is around $3,000. It includes everything except for lunches. And lunches we usually do quite reasonable at a bakery or somewhere to get the cuisine. And that includes everything. Their lube, tickets, nothing else that they need but money if they want to spend to buy something to bring home. Are there any questions? Or?
That's an incredibly good price right now because the airline ticket over there is about $2,600.
Yeah. I mean, that includes their dinners, their breakfasts, all their train tickets, everything. Everything. What I'm working on right now is I try to make sure the kids have their tip money for our cruise director, our director that takes us on the tours, our local guides, because they do get really a neat kind of history. When we get to the different places, I always arrange for local guides to tell them history through the eyes of the locals and not just the history that we teach them here.
Guess any questions?
Anything?
You may want to consider, you know Kyle Thompson?
Mm-hmm.
He works in Florence,
Right.
and he just did a great job of showing us around. And I think if he's available, he would be well, number one, he'd love to see the groups from Chapel Hill. I mean, it's be wonderful, but he kind of knows his way around, can maybe tell you some places that are maybe not on here if you have some free time.
And we do have free time, and I reached Kyle last time, and it didn't work out when we were, but I would love to see Kyle. He was one of my students, and
yeah, if you
he's
told
an
him ahead
incredible
of time,
person.
he might be able to arrange this. Actually, that's during spring break, so that might be a good time for him.
Yeah.
I don't know.
The kids would be.
Pompeii would have not been the same without Kyle's tour. He did a wonderful job.
Awesome. Awesome. We will try to see Kyle.
We do need a motion to approve this trail.
So moved. Second.
All in favor? 100%. Thank you, Ms. Lloyd. Okay, bond refunding discussion, Mr. Doug Witt with Southwest Securities.
I'm not ready to present after following that, I can assure you. My pictures are not nearly as fun, and my part is absolutely boring compared to that. But, you mind if I borrow?
Yes.
At your station, you should have a copy of a handout to discuss the bond refunding, and I want to go through a couple things. Current interest rate conditions, kind of your outstanding bonded indebtedness position, talk to you about the refunding opportunity and the time frame, and then answer any questions that you may have. And then at the end, we might talk a little bit about your lease purchase financing that you also have outstanding, which is a different type of obligation, and what we might be able to do with that as well. So with that, let's go behind tab 1. Behind tab 1, by the way, at any point during the presentation, please feel free to stop and ask questions, because as you can see, I'm going to cover about 4 tabs. So feel free to raise your hand at any time, and let's cover the question as we go. The tab 1 you'll see is an update of bond market conditions. The first graph that you see is Bond Buyers Index Municipal Bonds. To the far left of the graph, we're tracking this from January 2001 through where we are today. The average over that period is drawn in a blue line. It's at 4.66%. That's the average going across. We set the record high in October 2008 at just over 6%. We set the record low in October 2010 at 3.82%, and we're currently at a 4.17% in this particular index. I have extra copies. What you should know about that is prior to 2008, we were in a reasonably consistent market, if you will. We thought some of those spikes and valleys there were really market volatility at the time, but when you set a record high in October of 2008 and a record low in October 2010, you now know that we're dealing with market volatility that's real and very similar to what you see in the stock markets as well. It's a very volatile graph to the far right, but we are well below the average, and we are at pretty low levels at 417. If you'll go to the next page, the next page is the same set of data. It's just tracked from January of 2010 through October of 2011 rather than over an extended period of time. And here you see the low for that period of time was again October of 2010. And then in January 2011, we set the high there at 5.4%, and we're currently at 417. Okay, so that's kind of the broad-based index, if you will, as opposed to specific bonds. If you'll go to page 3, a little closer to home. A little closer to home are 3 school districts. The first block is Brownfield ISD that priced their refunding bonds in January of 11. Then Harlingen that priced in June of 11. And then Bridge City, which was our last small issuer Texas school bond to be priced, and that's the third block. We've highlighted 2 years in yellow, 2019. In January, Brownfield was at in the 4th column, yield to maturity of a 2.5%. In Harlingen in 2019, their yield to maturity was 2.3%. And then Bridge City in 2019 was a 2.08%. That's the 4th column of each block of bonds running across the yellow highlight. If you go out to 2029, in 2029, the yellow highlight, Brownfield was in the 4th column, 4.06. Harlingen was at a 3.807, and Bridge City was at a 3.59. So you see the trend downward in interest rates in Texas schools is very similar to the trend downward since January of 2011 that you saw on the graph before. The yield curve, as we call it, in Bridge City ISD to show you if you borrowed money today, what that would look like. The very far right column of this page, 2012, was at 0.35%. And then each longer maturity that you have is going to have a slightly higher interest rate because you're investing your money for a longer period of time. And then you go up to the maximum interest rate of 3.758% in 2032 with a 360 to yield 360 in 2033. So pretty low levels of rates, a little bit lower than where you were in 2002, as well as our 2002 bonds have now paid off about 9 years, so they're 9 years shorter bond, 9 years up the yield curve of where we are today. So what we're talking about is the possibility of refinancing these obligations. One of the questions you may ask is, what about October 2010? Why didn't we do it then? And I've got an answer for that I'll explain in the next section. But You issued bonds in 2002. They are not subject to redemption or your ability to call them in until August of 2012. So if you do a refunding in advance of the call date, you must invest the refunding bond proceeds until that call date. So the closer you get to that call date, the less you have to invest that at 0.25% or some nominal amount of investment. So these refundings become more efficient the closer we get to the call date. And then you judge that against the market risk of where will rates be in June, July of 2012 versus where they are today. The closer you get to 2012, the more efficient. Therefore, in October of 2010, when we set that very low rate, this deal did not work because of the inefficiency of that longer call date. At that point, it was 2 years. Okay? We're now a year into that. We've wiped out 12 months of inefficiency, investment inefficiency on investing the money until the call date of August the 12th. So with that, let's go to tab 2. Tab 2 are the 2 series of voting bonds that you have outstanding. You have a couple of other obligations, a small maintenance tax note that we issued, and then a lease revenue bond that you issued that we'll talk about in a moment. On tab 2, page 1, the 2 obligations add up to $325,000 per year, which is your annual budget, of which the state pays a large portion of that and always has paid a large portion of that. And both of those bonds were done under the Instructional Facility Allotment Program, which was an application-based program of which if you passed your bond election, applied, received the money, the state would pay their portion of that, and they determined their portion based upon the amount of tax base you had divided by the number of students. And you're what the state would call a very property poor district because you have the limited tax base, very limited commercial, obviously, a limited tax base for the number of students that you have. And you're well below that, therefore the state share is very high. And that's how those programs work. It allows you to do the bond programs at a subsidized cost to your taxpayers. And what you have outstanding is 2002, the first award, and 2006, the second award. And you see in column 2, the bonds that are callable are August 2012, and that's the call date, the ability to take them off of the current bondholder's hands. Okay? That's your current position. That's graphed on page 2. If there are questions, I'll entertain those now. If not, I'll flip you to tab 3, and we'll talk about the preliminary bond refunding analysis. Behind tab 3, I summarize the refunding, and I actually quantify this kind of inefficiency for you. Scenario 1 is, what if we took Bridge City ISD, the last small issuer transaction, an apples-to-apples comparison with your district, and we ran those rates, how much money could we save in that scenario 1? The term negative arbitrage is just the fancy term for this investment inefficiency, low investment returns from today until August of 2012. That's what that term means. Scenario 2, we say, well, what if we were able to keep these same rates to July of 2012, had none of that investment inefficiency, then we had the perfect storm, being perfect rates and no investment inefficiency. How much could we extract out of this refunding? And then scenario 3 says, what if we wait and eliminate all inefficiency, but yet interest rates rise? How much do they have to rise before we've lost what we could have done today? And that's what's shown in scenario 3, and that's 0.5%. Okay? So when you look at the 3 scenarios, the parameters are in the middle. It is an August 2012 call date. This is a small issuer refunding, meaning that it's $10 million or less. Banks and financial institutions that invest in small issuer bonds, $10 million or less, get an extra benefit from the federal government for investing in small issuers, and therefore many times our small issuer bonds will have lower interest rates than our larger Texas school districts. And so this is a bank qualified refunding. It goes out to 2029. The amount of bonds subject to redemption currently is $2,110,000. The current interest rates are 4% to 5%, and we're looking at replacing those with the 0.35 to 3.6 range. Okay, those rates will not be set today. They will be set in the future based on market conditions and when we do this. And it's our obligation and responsibility as your financial advisor to represent you in that market. So it's our job to go out and get the best rate possible for this district, to get the most amount of savings. I have no other responsibility other than you, getting you the lowest borrowing cost and getting you the maximum amount of savings. It doesn't mean that I control the market. If the market today is 4%, I can go out and get you 4%. If the market tomorrow is 4.5%, that's what the rates are that I have to deal with. Same thing if they're 2.5%. That's our job and responsibility in that market. It is kind of a commodity market, meaning that there are lots of Texas school districts. They all have the permanent school fund backing, and so you'll see very similar rates and very similar pricings because one investor knows what the other school district's borrowing at and so forth. So that's what we do. And then at the bottom here in the box at the bottom, the amount of savings that's available to you. This is net of all cost and fee, and I think what I'll do is I'll waive my fee if I can go on that trip. We'll just do a little bargain here because that looks like a lot of fun to me. But this is net of all cost of issuance. If you do go ahead and proceed with this and the market goes from where we are today to somewhere where it doesn't make sense, the district does not incur any cost, okay? So there's really no risk to you. There is some fees that get paid up front that we're all going to run risk on, particularly my group, and that's like, for example, the application for the permanent school fund, which you have to do well in advance. That's $2,300. And, you know, the bottom line is we've had permanent school fund deals that we've made the application, it went away, and we're sitting there, we've already cut the check on your behalf, and we don't really go ask you for it. We would probably do that again today, just so you understand that we have a vested interest in you as well as you do, and we're not trying to charge you for something that's not going to happen. We're trying to help you get to the point that if you want to take advantage of this, we're able to do it. But with that said, I think the basic thing that you should understand is that you're not going to pay me a fee to do this, and if the transaction doesn't close, you owe a bunch of money, okay? Same thing with the bond attorneys that prepared those documents. Same thing with the Attorney General's fee. Same thing with the rating fees and so forth, okay? Which puts the risk on us, which we don't like to do, but that's kind of what we do in this business. With that said, this is gross savings in the sense of it's not all your savings. You split these savings with the state because they're paying a percentage of all of your principal and interest costs. And that percentage that the state pays is roughly 65%. So if you want to know what we save here, it's 35% of that. So it's not a real big deal. It's not something to get real excited about. It's not something that we're going to get to lower the tax rate tremendously for your taxpayers because we pay a small portion of that. But it's there for the taking if you want to take it. And so that's what we present to you. In a perfect storm, you see here it's about $250,000 savings using an actual bond that was priced today. That's total over the life of the issue. That's about $14,500 per year. And then there's a statistic to the right that says 9.5% present value savings as a percent of the refunded bonds. That statistic is there to show you how much bang for the buck you're getting. If you were getting $250,000 of savings and this is a $20 million bond issue we were refunding, that would be a very, very limited refunding for savings. If you're getting $250,000 savings on $2 million, that's a real large amount of savings. That's 9.5% on a present value basis. What makes it a smaller amount is that we're 35% of that. Now, we are doing the state as big a favor as we're doing ourselves, and you know, y'all can make the decision if you want to do that. But you're about 35% of this. In a perfect world, near record low interest rates, on August of 2012, you're looking at about $338,000 savings and about $19,500 per year, of which your percentage is 0.35%. And that's a 13% present value savings. Scenario 3, if we were to wait until July of 2012 to do this, and rates were 0.5% higher than they are today, you'd be right back where you are today, where you have low rates, but inefficiency. There you would have higher rates, no inefficiency, and that's your sensitivity analysis. So if anyone wants to guess whether or not we'll be at 0.5% higher in the future or less, we can do that. What the standard procedure is that we establish a level of savings today, and you authorize us through that order. You delegate to the administration to finish the transaction, execute the final documents, if we're able to reach that level of savings. I'm telling you, with respect to 250,000, that was a bond issue that was priced next week. We are 30 days away from locking in any interest rates, and we may be able to get 250,000 in 30 days, we may not. I mean, there's no cushion, there's no conservatism. I'm not, messing with the numbers here for you. So what I'm telling you is that's the level of savings that's available if we were able to price today. When you look at the schedule in the back, we have to go through the procedures, right, to be able to sell bonds. Those procedures include putting out an offering document which contains your financial condition. It incorporates getting a bond rating, getting the permanent school fund backing, and going through that process, having an underwriter's counsel do due diligence with the administration, making sure that we're disclosing everything properly about the district. So that process takes about 30 days. There are August of 2012 call date districts that are out there that are not where you are today. They're kind of waiting and eliminating the inefficiency. There are others who went ahead and priced it 60 days ago and took the inefficiency, and that's where they are. It gets better as time goes by, as long as interest rates are relatively stable. Interest rates tomorrow could be lower than today, and tomorrow would be less inefficiency, excuse me. So with that said, what I would suggest to you is, given that you're about 35% of this, I mean, we can pick any number and we can debate it all night, but I would say put the number at 250,000. If we can get that or north, then we do so. If we don't, then we pass on the transaction. And I absorb the risk, the cost, and the problems that go with that. But with that said, we can set it at any number. We can set it at 200, we can set it at 225. You tell me your thoughts there. The perfect world is you'd be slightly over 300,000, and your 35% of $5,000 is what you're looking at annually. So with that, I'll entertain thoughts, questions, or otherwise. If I had my druthers, I would come in and set it at a level I knew we could achieve in the next 30 days. It's such a minimum level of savings, and the fact that the rates are now up slightly from where they were 3 weeks ago when we first started talking. I mean, I don't control the market, but rates are slightly above where they were 3 weeks ago, but they're way below where they were in January and June, which is what I tracked there. So with that said, any thoughts on that particular?
Is there any data to support a particular time in the year where interest rates are lower?
No. We set the record high in October of 08. We set the record low in October 2010. So month to month you cannot predict it. If you can, I would be in Sorrento. And I would, because we could obviously track that, place bets, and play arbitrage games, and we simply don't have that ability. Any given month could be a high, any given month could be a low. We're going to be a function of federal tax law. We're going to be a function of macroeconomics. We're a function of market flows nowadays. Our volatility is in part driven by the fact that everybody's got a computer and they can buy and sell through mutual funds our bonds on a click of a button. People are moving in and out of the stock market. As you see, when that thing goes up and down, sometimes when the stock market is down in their price, we're up in our price because people are moving money over and buying our bonds. When the stock market's up, people are moving out of our bonds, driving up our interest rates. And so there's some flows that go with that. There's international credit issues in terms of Greek debt, for example, that can affect our market. So the price of mortgages affects your market because a small issuer. Our 30-year mortgages are at record lows. Therefore, banks have an opportunity to invest in tax-exempt bonds on small issuers or provide mortgage loans. Mortgages are at 30-year record lows. That means they're pushing our rates down too because they can get tax-exempt interest. So that's a long-winded answer to a question. There is no real good predictability. What we do have is historical data. 0.5% can go in pretty short order, which is what you're looking at there, you're like, you know, gosh, in any given several month period, we can move 0.5%. What we do know is what has come down has gone up. What's gone up has come down. What I would suggest to you is that over the next 8 months or so, as you eliminate that inefficiency, 50 basis points or 0.5%, if we're fortunate, we could catch the market at the appropriate time. Do I think we're gonna lose 0.5% between now and August? No, when the federal government and the federal Treasury is buying short-term bonds and said we're not gonna do anything with short-term interest rates. So, you know, I think 0.5% is a fair sensitivity to try to get to 250,000 sometime in the next 6 months. But there are no guarantees. Did I answer your question?
You did, not with the answer.
We're doing several of these in many cases where it's larger bond issues, where the school district's paying a higher share. We've got conservatism built in the numbers, and the likelihood of them getting it done is very good. In this case, we're showing you reality, and the reason we're doing that is we want it to be a transaction where you guys make as much money as everybody else. And when I say everybody else, if a transaction makes the investment banking industry more money than the district, it's probably not that great a deal. So,
Well, that being said, is our best price point 250,000?
I think that at 250,000, that is a legitimate transaction, a large amount of savings of which you're a small percentage, and the likelihood of getting that done is better than 50-50 because of this negative arbitrage and the time that we have to August the 12th. But again, if you want to do 200, it takes the edge off of me. I mean, we can set that bar. Whenever we go to price this, we're going to maximize your savings and minimize your interest rate. By setting a bar, you're not saying, okay, just go get, you know, a low bar deal. I've got to, if tomorrow, you set it at 200 and tomorrow we can achieve 260, we're going to get 260. All we're doing is merging this market risk with inefficiency and not trying to gamble with taxpayer money too much. Is that?
Well, it seems to me that the least risk would be to put it at 250. Is that reasonable?
Yeah, that's less risk than, say, putting it at 300 and trying to have perfection. It's more risky than putting it at 225 or 200. But again, really, there's no risk to the district here, right? Because you're not incurring any costs other than an opportunity cost.
You're risking your benefit, though, if you put it lower.
That's right, that's the opportunity cost. And again, I think it's a better than 50-50 chance to get that deal done at 250. And we're absorbing risk. We as a firm, I mean, my manager in my accounting department's not going to be happy with this conversation. I'm just saying that when you look at 1/3 of 15,000, that's $5,000 per year. And that is a relatively small amount of money. Although it's real money to you, it's a relatively small amount of money. And on just a pure numbers basis, forget about these percentages, trying to get you $5,000 per year makes some sense. Does that make sense? I'm trying to set the bar high enough that it's
Right.
a real deal for you, and with no risk to you. It would be advantageous to me to tell you to set it at 200.
Because it's a lot easier to hit.
It's a lot easier to hit that and get it done, and we're gonna make a fee to do that. And I'm trying to set the bar pretty high here for you. It's real numbers based on a real deal. We could be up from Bridge City in the next 6 months, we could be down. You set it at 250, we're gonna work at it, and if we get to August of 2012 and we haven't done the transaction, we'll come back to you and say, here's where we're at, here's what level of savings you can get, do you wanna do it?
We'll be able to track that as we go towards August 12 by knowing what rates.
Yes, I've got some,
If rates don't move, the closer we get, the more money we're saving.
that's correct.
The opportunity gets greater, closer we get to August without rates rising.
That's right. That's
And
exactly.
obviously, if rates go down, then it's even better, but So that's the thing that, I mean, we'll be able to, we won't even necessarily have to have you tell us in August, because it's not like we'll be in the dark until then, we'll kind of know what rates are doing. So if we were to set the bar at 250, then you've got, what happens in the next 45 days if rates move 25 basis points
Up or down?
up? What are you gonna do?
Then we're gonna get everything geared up and then sit on it until rates come back down to where we can do it. Because 45 days is not, the 45 days of gain in efficiency is not going to offset 0.25%.
Okay?
But it'll offset 0.05, 0.08, it'll offset that, see that? So we're gonna gear it up, and you're gonna give me a number, and then as soon as we can achieve that, we're gonna achieve it, and if we can blow it out the door, we're gonna blow it out the door, but we're not gonna gamble beyond that. If in 45 days you're at 252,000 savings, and that's what the market does, we're gonna pull the trigger, because that's the direction that we have, and we're not gonna gamble and, with that, because if we wait, you know, if we can get 250 and we pass on it, and then in August of 2012, we're back up to 6%, and we can't do it, you are gonna look at me and say, why didn't you do it then? Well, I don't have a crystal ball any better than anyone else in America about where rates will be. So we don't get into the predicting ability, if that makes sense what I'm saying. I mean, we're gonna move as soon as we can get this. And you never look back. I can tell you right now, there are guys far more aggressive than me. We've been asked to track this refunding for years now, and we've told you on many occasions it just doesn't work and it doesn't make sense. And there have been districts out there that with call dates out in the future pulled the trigger 2 years ago and did a refunding. Well, they're not today looking back saying, gosh, if we had waited. Their financial advisor, their guy that does what I do, is not coming in their board meeting and say, y'all really messed up, you know. In fact, they'll tell you, many financial advisors won't even give you this information. What they'll do is they'll come in and say, you got a 9% present value deal, we need to move. And they go forward and they do it and they earn their fee and they don't ever talk about opportunity cost. That's the reality of where we're at. So I would say that I'm telling you that we're being aggressive setting it at 250 because there's absolutely no guarantees that we're gonna keep those rates. The offset of that aggression is we have this inefficiency, and it's 0.5%. Sometime over the next 8 months, we're gonna be in a market that's around 0.5% or less above where we are today, and we should be able to get 250,000 savings. I can't guarantee it. I'm taking more risk than the district, but by saying that, but I do want you to get a transaction that makes sense for this size of deal and for your statistics.
If we hit the 250 mark, sir, what did you say the rate would be that we're looking to hit?
The 251,000 of savings?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, at 251,000 of savings, the rates are 0.35 to 3.6%, which is where they are today. You could get to 251,000 of savings at a rate that's higher than that in, say, 3 months, when we eliminate 3 months of what we have is several months of inefficiency. So it's a combination of the rates and the investment efficiency.
Timing.
That's exactly right.
So basically, what you're looking for is a sweet spot out there.
Yeah, I'm looking for y'all to agree or disagree with me on what level we should set. And I'm telling you, I could individually poll you without putting you on the spot, let you write it on paper, and every one of you would come up with a different number. Because some of you would say, if we can save $200,000 for us in the state, what are we waiting for? And it's the percentage present value savings is very high. The rule of thumb, the minimum rule of thumb is 3%. Well, we're 3 times that. I would get others of you say, rates are not going up 0.5%. I've listened to the Federal Reserve. I've sit there and watched market conditions. If we set it at 250, we should be setting it at 300 and getting perfection. That's what some of you would say. And so it'll be all over the map. I'm just trying to help you out by saying you have no risk to me setting what I think is the 250,000, that number we showed several weeks ago, where we put conservatism into the numbers to be conservative and say, this is what you can get. And now Bridge City comes along, we price it at 250,000, so we're showing the same number. It's the same number that we've seen for 3 weeks now.
Well, your conservative number 3 weeks ago is reality now.
That's exactly what I'm telling you. You hit the nail on the head.
So,
Because it's moved.
Because the market
Because
has
the
moved.
market's moved,
If
yeah.
if you want to see how the market has moved, you can look at,
Well, that's what I was just looking at. It's moved a little bit in the last couple of months, hasn't it?
it has, it's been both up and down.
Yeah.
If you'll look on the page, tab 1, page 2. In a page, tab 1, page 2, you can see what the market has done. It came down very close to the record low in October of 10, or a little after August. It was back up a couple of weeks, it's back down a couple of weeks, and then it's back up a couple of weeks. So we're bouncing around the bottom. And that 417 number is where we are today, and a couple of weeks ago, we were about 385-ish. Okay, so that's about 0.2% type of fluctuation that we've had there. And so again, what was 3 weeks ago was conservative, showing 250, is now reality showing 250. And that's the world that we live in today.
so if you did it right now, what would it say?
250.
So if we set it at 250, well, then we're just moving forward. We're just saying go.
The only problem there is that to lock in the rates, then we're 30 days away from that. In fact, our schedule, which is the last one, shows that the pricing can take place on November the 8th, so a little less than 30 days. And that's moving very, very quickly.
So Bo, you're right, assuming that the rates don't change, you're right. But like he said, it's 30 days from now before we could actually lock in, so.
Yeah.
So it could be better or worse. If it was better, then it's locked in. If it's worse, then we have to hold it.
That's right. We've been pricing, refundings have been taking place all year. They've been taking place the year before. Your situation is you have an August 12 call date, and so the August 12 call dates are being considered now. A couple of them have been done on a very aggressive schedule where they probably weren't told about inefficiency, or they just smoothed over that. And then there's others who are just kind of in a wait and see. I've had much bigger bond issues than this, where the administration said, we're gonna wait, and we'll talk about this in the spring of 2012. So I think you're in good shape. The order that you have before you is good for 6 months. That's gonna take us through the period. If we don't get it done in 6 months, we have to come back and do another one. And that'd be in and around that August 12 call date. I probably made a relatively simple item more complicated than it needs to be. All we're trying to do is lower your interest rate. You know, if anyone has a strong opinion on what to set the level of savings, by all means voice it. I'm giving you my best recommendation, 250, but there's not anything magic about that.
Our part is, so if we hit the sweet spot with scenario 2, our part is only a third of Five's $1,500 swing.
Right. Between the difference of the other scenario.
Yeah. In the best case scenario, we could probably make an additional $1,500 a year.
That's correct.
Say it, Mike.
Well, if the thing moves against us, we can.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think I know where you're going on that.
It's one thing when you're doing your money, it's another thing when you're doing the taxpayers' money.
Well, we're just looking for the best deal.
Well, I know, but some of us might risk our own money a little longer
Right.
than there's, in the cow market, I might be inclined to hold those cows a little bit longer. Right now, though, if you're doing other people's money, you would say, you got a good price, sell those cattle right now. I mean, that's a connotation that I work in.
If I made y'all put skin in the game here, you'd set the bar lower than 250. The skin in the game is $2,300 PSF application and about a $5,000 rating fee. If you incurred that, right, you're gonna wanna get the deal done sooner rather than later, but I haven't asked you to put any skin in the game.
So he's gonna take the risk for 6 months.
I'm with Mike. My personal thought is, I believe, hear me out, let me finish the whole thing. I believe that if we waited till August 12th, if it were me, I would probably wait till August 12th, and I would take the chance. But it's not that much of a difference, and it's a lot more likely to happen now, and I'm dealing with taxpayers' money. If there's a way I could save the taxpayer money, because the worst case scenario is August 12th, the rates change significantly, and I don't come out anywhere near. But we have an opportunity now to save some taxpayer money, go ahead and make that call. And the 250 is, I feel like, is a good medium number. And there's really not that much difference saving if the best case scenario does happen in August 2012. Like Mike said, it's about a $1,500 swing. Difference between us saving $5,000 a year or $6,500 a year, but the odds are of saving $5,000 a year happen a lot quicker and just being more secure. Is that what you were saying, Mike?
Yeah, and the other part of that is, these jokers in Washington, I mean, it's an election year, and there's no telling what rabbit they're gonna pull out of their hat. And it nearly always works against you. And I don't really mean to be cynical, but I think realistically, the stock market's all over the place because of that. Bond market's all over the place because of that.
Well, I think he explained that, they're
Yeah.
jumping back and forth.
It's, you know, and then you throw the Europeans in the mix, and it's muddy water.
Does anybody in here have a hard time with us accepting 250 as the bar?
No, I think it's a good opportunity for us to go ahead and do that, because, I mean, we can save 250, or we can wait around and hope to save 300.
And we might not be able to hit the 250 also is another scenario.
That's right, and if you don't, then
We look at.
if we don't hit 250 in the next 6 months, then these documents become stale, and we come back to you and show you what the market is and where it's at, and then you make a different decision. And it could be, and it's not like you only have August to 12. You could be October of 12 and still do a refunding. I mean, it's not, that's not,
just our first opportunity.
that's your
Yeah.
first opportunity, exactly.
Without any arbitrage.
Without any arbitrage, negative arbitrage, yes, that's correct. If you do want to make the motion, it is kind of as your agenda reads, it is to adopt the order authorizing the issuance of refunding bonds subject to savings goals, which if you want the goal to be different than 250, you need to state that, and then you're delegating to the administration the ability to complete the refunding.
Maybe, I agree with you on that. If, of course, we can get to 250, but at least we're getting savings and we're locking it in. So we, you know, we, really be bad stewards if we did not lock something in. That they can, nobody can be mad, you know, if you didn't get all the money the boat had, but you got some of it. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So I would say that our duty is to try to be smart and get some of it.
Opportunity cost, is that what you said? Well, I'm
And,
willing to make a
you know,
motion.
and not, and try to be willing to be a tick gritty with it, but be smart on top of that. So I kinda agree with where John started, and
Mark, as far as a motion, is what we're trying to do here, or what we're, is allow them the opportunity to go ahead and move forward, us basically setting a bar, 250. And then y'all move forward, after about 30 or 45 days, then y'all can actually start trying to set that rate. If it's lower, nothing happens.
If it's lower, we're gonna move forward and have.
No, I don't
more-
mean if the rate's lower, I mean if the amount that we'd save was
If the
lower.
savings lower, then we sit on it.
Okay.
The AG's office will be looking at the order, which is prepared by the attorneys that establishes the bar that you all set. It's called a parameter refund.
Well, then I'll make the motion that we approve refunding, I don't know exactly how to word this, with a bar of
It's right
250.
there on number 2.
So,
Order authorizing
I can help if you like.
Yeah, please.
You're gonna move to adopt the order authorizing the issuance of refunding bonds, subject to meeting a savings goal of, I believe your term is 250,000. Is that correct? Okay. And delegating to the administration the authority to complete the refunding.
Okay, then I move we adopt the order authorizing the issuance of refunding bonds subject to $250,000 and delegating to the administration the authority to complete the refunding program.
Thank you, that's perfect.
Second? Bo, all in favor? 100%. Thank you,
Now
Doug.
you can go to Sorrento.
I want to. A couple other places in there I'd like to go to as well. All I got to say is when you go to Pompey, stay out of the Pompey's red light district with the kids.
No, definitely.
My tour guide thought that would be fun to take us through there, and my wife's eyes were like,
Yeah, it was strange.
that is a beautiful place, though.
It is.
I wasn't expecting them to enjoy it, but that really was a
Well, that was
phenomenal.
one of the highlights of my trip, because I had, back years ago, before Jeff and them were born, they brought an exhibit to Dallas, about Pompeii. And I had seen some of that stuff there, and it's always in the back of my head, one of these days I'll get over there and see the whole thing. It's worth a trip all the way over there just for that, to me. Okay, let's move along here,
If they
guys.
have any questions. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Doug.
If they have any questions, I can call it, otherwise they-
No, I'm pretty good.
Okay. Performance-based monitoring analysis system, PDMAS. Annual report, Ms. Norwood and Ms. Bristow.
PDMAS stands for Performance-Based Monitoring Analysis System. This is a report that we receive from TEA each year. I know you probably looked at it, there's 4 different sections to the report, so we'll just look at the first one there. And they're all set up the same. They have multiple criteria within each section, and then they score them or evaluate them. And in this case, anytime you see a 0, it's a good thing. And then it goes to a 1, 2, or a 3. So what they're measuring us either at a targeted percentage or number or the difference of. So that's how they get how they grade us. A 0 is good, 1, 2, or 3. So anyway, the first one is on our bilingual education, and of course, we don't have any bilingual programs here with ESL. And really, the way that we generally look at these reports is we go all the way over to the far right-hand column, and where it says 2011 indicator performance level, and you can go down to zeros or report only. But this, like I say, each section has a different set of criteria. So there's 2 pages there that are the bilingual ESL program, then there's another couple of pages in the second section that are on our CTE programs. And all of this, they're looking at tax passing rates for students that are either bilingual or ESL or in our CTE programs. And then you can see on that one section, there's 10 different areas where they measure us. The third section is our NCLB section, looks at our Title I programs and our migrant programs and analyzes how those students are performing. And then the last section and the longest one with the most criteria there to me is our special education. And again, it's looking at how did those students perform on the tax test, and then it even breaks it down to how many of your students took an alternate tax, how many took a modified tax, how does that compare, how many of your students in different sub-pops are identified as special ed. So lots and lots of data, and this is just another one that you know we look forward to every year, and it helps us to analyze our performance and our progress in different programs.
It is required report.
Yes, this is a required report, so that's why I'm sharing it with you. We have to have this done by December, so we're ahead of the game. Do you have any questions on this report? A lot of the data you've already seen. This is just applied to certain groups of students. There's really nothing new here. It's just, it's like I say, just as it applies to certain groups of students.
Any questions, guys?
We use this to make decisions for our children. It is part of what the TEA, like Pam states, we get this every year. And it's very helpful to us when we're looking at analyzing all our different programs. And Ms. Norwood does a good job bringing that to my attention sometimes. And so does Ms. Bristow, especially.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Does it, do we need, just have to
No,
present it?
I just
Okay.
have to be able to tell them that I publicly reported it to you.
Will you
Thank
accept
you.
it? Do we have to,
I don't think we have
accept
to.
it?
No, you don't, I'm sorry, no, just, we have to, it's enough that it's on an agenda.
Okay, state of Texas, STAR, end of course, release test example questions.
Wanted to take an opportunity, and I knew the newspaper might be here tonight, I just wanted to say with you guys, this is just an FYI, that parents are, it's starting to get out more and more, that they actually, on the TEA website, have the STAR resources page now, and that's what I put on there for you guys. And again, in the past, when they did this, some of these release test questions weren't as stringent. I mean, they really, I don't believe in past that it provided you maybe the better look that you need. I'm quite pleased with what I'm seeing, and again, if anybody, there's about, what, 10 to 13 or 14 questions. Got every end of course that's there, physics, and I just did the high school. You could, I mean, if you'll look down there, it's got the release for grade 3, grade 4, grade 5, all of it's on there. These are some of those end of course, and some of y'all, may be curious, but again, we're doing more with our teachers, we're talking to our families. Sometimes that takes the edge off a little bit. I'm proud that they did deliver us these release test questions, and each one of them has about, I'd say they're average about 10 to 13 questions. And again, I want to make the statement that in the past, my experience has been that when you're looking at these, it really wasn't as diligent when the kids took the test. This looks a lot more like okay. And when you look at this, the example I thought I would use tonight on a 6th grade level, I guess, maybe I use my bar graph one that I talked with you about. The difference being that in the past, when I looked at this one question, it was kind of a single-step process. You had maybe 4 bar graphs on your paper, the kids trying to answer the question, but really one of those bar graphs, all you had to do was focus in to get your answer. Well, in the new test, it's like, okay, well that's fine, that may be on there, but now you've got double bar graphs, let's say, so now you've got 8, and every one of those double bar graphs has meaning in how you're going to answer that question. So you might be looking at this and it might take it up, and another one might bring it back down, but in other words, yes, it's going to be more rigorous, yes, it's going to be more involved, yes, the best way to prepare for this is those teachers, as they continue to pay attention to those verbs, I guess we could say that in their material, and work with the higher level. But they're also going to have to give us time to figure this all out. Teachers are working hard. I was just appreciative as a superintendent to see that this looked much more legitimate. And I asked Mr. Norwood if we would just, because we're all busy, if we would just go and hand them and make sure folks, and some teachers had already said, oh yes, I've been on there, I've looked at that. Others were thankful and just saying okay, kind of comparing some things. But with everything going on right now and folks working as hard as they are, we're trying to take a little bit of the edge off. But anyway, if you're curious, if that's your thing, if more looking at the instruction or the testing, you can go to the website, pull that down. If you've got a child, Mark, I've got one, it's a junior, you've got one. I think it's just interesting to take a look what kind of end of course, and just, John, in the past, it just seems to me, everybody,
Those questions that you have there are on the site?
Yes, sir, yeah, in other words, right
With the
here, in the
teachers.
bottom right-hand corner with a page,
the
it says,
teachers.
release test
What that
questions.
looks
So when it says EOC, Mike, end of course assessments, all of those is where I printed those off of, okay? But these are extra copies too, and if anybody, if you wanna take home the 10 or 13 questions on physics or algebra 1 or algebra 2 or world geography, I got it. Anyway, just as a public service announcement on that, we gotta get our game on, this is gonna be on top of us, and then again, but when we talk about the rigor, yep,
I
yes.
was just asking Pam what the teachers, what she was hearing
Well,
from
that's a
them.
good question.
Tomorrow, actually, I'm gonna meet with the high school math teachers, because I told them when I gave them all the the copies, I said, I can't wait to get your feedback. You know, what do you think? And so tomorrow, I'm anxious. I'm gonna meet with the math teachers at high school, see what they think. Most of the teachers that I've handed them to have been, they're a little nervous, but, you know, it's a new test. And, but, you know, I pulled some reports last week that show our previous year's tax results through the lens of STAR. And we were really encouraged. The principals, we looked at it last week, and they're giving that to their teachers also. Hopefully, because one elementary teacher made the comment to me, you know, she said, well, I can do this, I just can't do it in 45 minutes, or what, you know. But I think the report that the principal, that I printed, the principal's gonna give them, will hopefully put some of their fears to ease, because those reports looked very, very positive. And, you know, we're working hard. I mean, our principals are working so hard with our teachers, and teachers are working with families and the students. So I think we'll be okay, but it's a little intimidating right now for them. It definitely is.
Did you say that they've taken our tax scores and kind of made a
Yes.
prediction on what they
Yeah.
think we will do on
Yeah.
STAR?
And, you know, I don't
Well, I
like
know, it's just a prediction.
Yeah, I, you know, feel better being here than probably in some districts, I can assure you. You know, there are some spots that, yeah, we know we're gonna have to work on, but I didn't really see any major surprises, and that was a little comfort, you know.
Look familiar.
Yes, yes, it did, and really in some contents and grade levels, I mean, there was, the way that the report ran it, if things showed up in red, that was something that students were below 70% on. So even some of our red were between 65 and 69%, so,
It's attainable.
it was, yeah, it was, I think it was encouraging.
That's just that.
Any other questions? All right, let's move on to the first annual report. Jeff?
I have a copy for everybody here. We're required to do so. Does anybody else want one? You'll pass those out. You have it in front of you. Same report we have. And basically, this stands for first stands for Financial Integrity Rating System Texas. We get this rating every year. It's typically around the end of August is when we get it. We have then 60 days to report it. So we're just within that. There's some special newspaper requirements we have to do. We have to put in the newspaper and the legals. There has to be specific wording. It has to be in an open meeting. We have to provide all this to everybody that's in attendance. We have met all those deals, and we are now going to get into the report. It is based on the prior, not last year's, but the year before last. So, as you can see, we passed. Our district score was a 78. There's of 80 possible points. And you can go down through here, and I've also, in the next section, provided what each, kind of the method of each deal. We're not going to know unless y'all want a specific question, you know, explained to you. I'm just going to kind of hit the one we missed.
Yeah, I couldn't find that.
We are 22. If you'll go to 22, it's on that second page at the bottom, where investment earnings in all funds, so debt service fund and capital project funds, more than $20 per student. Ours were not. Ours were $17,118 for that year, amounting to $18.87 per student. So we missed it by $1.13. Which would mean we would have had $1,031 more in investment earnings to actually obtain that greater than 20. It's greater than $20 to get a 5, greater than $19 or equal to, and less than $20 to get a 4. And we fell into 3, in which we were greater than $18 but less than or equal to $19. So that's that there.
And that was in the year where we were getting 1%.
Yes.
We're not gonna get anywhere close
well, we're getting 0.61 right now.
So about half that.
Knocking it away.
Yeah. Are there any more questions on the report itself? Because there are other sections that we do have to go over. Okay. If you'll, it has the first rating calculation there. We can skip through that unless there's a specific question, but it just tells you how the state gets to each one of those numbers. We do have to report there the superintendent contract. That's the next section. If there's any specific questions on that, that is the contract that was approved this summer and signed June 20th. So that's there for y'all. And then we'll get into the management reports. The management reports consist of 4 specific reports that are asked to be done by the state, and we have presented them. And this is based on last year's data. So where the first report is based on the year before, this is actually based on last year's data. And we reported the prior year's data last year in the first report. The first report there is reimbursements received by superintendent and or board members. You can see there's very small amounts for everybody. Mike and Mark Stansel went to the SLI conference, and those are reflected there. And then the remaining are small incidental for the one Civic Center dinner, $20 a person that was, and there was another one there. Are there any questions specifically on that? Okay. Outside compensation and or fees received by the superintendent for professional consulting and or professional service. Mark is reporting that there were none. He did not report, and we did not have any professional consulting fees obtained by him. Any gifts received by executive officers and or board members, which would be Mark or the board, of $250 aggregate value. I did not receive a report from anybody who got a gift of more than $250 for the service on the board. So we're not reporting anything there. The only other report or part of this management report is business transaction between the school district and board members. This is not a business transaction with a specific board, I mean, it is a specific board member, but it is to a corporation, El Chico, in which the president owns, Mr. Chambers. We had catering and fees that the school paid, not fees, but for example, if the baseball team, the teacher appreciation was one of them. That was the main catering, but baseball team went over there and they billed the school for, I mean, El Chico billed the school, but that's where the fees are from that. Are there any questions?
My question is, why are Terry Scoggins and Kirk Giddens on here? If that's ended at August 31st. Should be
It is.
Bo and Mark.
It is, yeah. That page is incorrect.
Did the state? The state?
No, I produced this, and they were not changed. They were changed on the first page there,
Okay.
and then the subsequent pages were not.
Okay. Very good, I'm sorry.
No, that's right. I mean, Kurt is not supposed to be on there, and Terry is not supposed to be on there. That would be Bo and Mark. But again, in all they reports, they also nothing was reported.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Is that it? Thank you, Jeff. Okay, local policy change concerning PE credits, Mr. Denard.
I would like to propose to you is, in PE, we have one local credit. It's a half credit. We have to have, the state requires that you have one credit for PE. We added, or y'all added some time ago, an extra credit for PE. We've had some students come forward and ask about what they could do for that PE, and what we were asking is if we could be able to accept students that maybe play a fall or spring sport that aren't in athletics, that don't get credit for it, but just show up to either do like tennis or golf or something like that. We talked to the coaches, they didn't feel like it was a full athletic, so they didn't want to give a credit for that, but they were okay with if we did, if you played 2 years of a spring sport or a fall sport where you're not in an athletic period, they were okay with allowing that to count as one, that local credit, that half credit. And so what I was proposing to y'all is that we would accept that, basically if a kid plays 2 years of a one semester sport and they're not in the athletic period, that would count as that local credit
For PE.
for PE. Because they're participating, it's just they're not in an athletic
Right.
period.
Seems reasonable. Any objections to that? We need to make a motion to that effect.
That's all. Since it's a local credit.
Is there any consideration as to why that would be okay? Does anybody have?
Well, I'm assuming this kid starts the season, finishes the season.
Oh, yeah.
If they,
They're just not in an athletic period.
all right, what about, you got kids that, let's just say want to be on the tennis team, is there any requirements for them lettering in tennis?
Oh, yeah, I mean, they have to
That's what I mean.
varsity.
Are we saying, okay, they go for tennis and letter, then we're gonna give them,
I'm just participation.
okay, I'm
Yeah.
just,
Because not all of them will possibly letter, I don't know all the specifics of the lettering aspect
yeah,
of it,
that's,
but
that's,
I just figured if they're
Comes with
participating in
documentation of them
a
staying.
sport.
well, I'm just, you got a kid, he wants to play tennis, he's really not very good, he goes to 2 matches that spring, he gets PE credit if he does it again next year, but, I mean, maybe, I don't know.
It's just
I'm
PE though. I mean, you know, I just go, well, it's just PE, it's not, he's doing something. I mean, what do they do in PE?
They have to practice, I mean, they're out there
Yeah.
practicing even if they only go to 2 matches.
They
Well, I
also-
mean,
they-
I'm saying that it's not like full athletics where they would have to be an athletic person, is what I'm trying to say. If students in athletics are more athletic, or people, I mean, people in PE, you could be athletic, but you don't have to be to participate in PE. You know what I'm saying? It's not, you don't have to letter in it, anything, you know.
Well, I think if the kid's putting out effort and he stays with the program, I mean, I'm like Mike, if he quits in the middle, he doesn't get the credit.
Yeah.
But, I mean, you are gonna make sure they participate, correct?
Yes, sir.
Just like anything else.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's great. There's
I mean, that's, you know,
If they quit in the middle, they gotta go to the PE class.
Well, no, it's, their schedule's made up, they just didn't have
Yeah.
time, they didn't have an opportunity for athletics, so the coaches were like, you're only doing one sport, you don't need to be in athletics.
Yeah.
You could just come after school and participate. We have quite a few kids that do that for like tennis or golf or something like that, so.
Right.
You always give them credit.
And if they do at least 2 years of a sport, then we wanted to give them credit for that local,
they
PE.
play Catholic first year, they probably wouldn't get second year or something, they take care of
They
themselves.
wouldn't get it. They're only getting a half a credit for 2 years, right?
Right,
Right.
that's right. 2 seasons.
Okay.
Which is what's needed to go along with the 1 credit that was already required.
Right.
Well, the state says you have to do that PE, and they can supersede that with athletics, but since they're not in the athletic period for this, we figured there's some maneuverability with that local credit, half credit.
Frees up a little bit of their schedule for those kids that are really angry.
Yes, sir.
They can do more. Sounds reasonable to me.
I would move that we accept the recommendation of the coaches to allow the half credit for 2 years and by participating in a sport, but not in athletics per se. I don't know if I worded that right, but I just think we accept the recommendation of the coaches, as presented by Mr. Bennett.
Second.
Second.
All in favor? 100%. All right. Thank you, Mr. Denard. Okay, local option tax goods in transit, Jeff and Mark.
Jeff, would you mind? We both called Ronnie Babcock on this, and I know this may not be a great amount to our district, but the key thing to listen to here is that if we do not act to complete this resolution and say that we are going to, continue with this and opt to tax the goods in transit, if, you don't have an opportunity opportunity to go back the other way. Is that what you understood?
Basically, what you have in front of you is the motion to not exempt goods in transit, which basically are, it would amount to us if we had a distribution facility within our tax base, or a warehouse, large warehouse. Lowe's is an example of that Mount Vernon has. Goods in transit sit in as inventory, and that gets counted at particular times of the year, and it gets really taxed at the end of the year. But the value would provide us taxes. Right now, we are not exempting that. But it doesn't give us any economic value to not exempt it, other than if we ever exempted it and a warehouse or something moved in, we would never be able to go back and tax that entity based on those inventory. So,
And if they did come in.
but if they did come in at this point, we could
And then we wanted to make some kind
negotiate,
of
or,
concessions, right?
yes, we could at that time, if they
And
come
just
to
make
us and say,
business.
hey, we wanna come to,
Right.
into your tax base, but we need,
So if we don't exempt it, we've got options as we go forward. If we exempt it, we're
you
exempt.
don't have any more
That's
options, yes, sir.
And we have a window of October 1st, and before December 31st to act on a resolution that says either way.
This resolution really does not provide anything of economic value to this, to the district, other than the opportunity in the future if anything ever changed, as far as somebody moving in.
Well, you got it.
Well, don't we need to move to allow us to have
Yes.
that option? Okay.
That's the recommendation.
We're moved to not exempt goods in transit.
So much.
Second.
All in favor? 100%?
Well, I'm glad.
Okay. Well, we got,
We can make it. What do we got, like, coming?
all we have is transfer.
I can-
Oh, team building, I'm
Well,
sorry.
no, keep going, transfer, take 2 minutes. and then
Okay.
we can break. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's, it's an FYI.
Okay.
Okay, the team, is that where we are?
Yeah, team building.
I just wanted to make sure that y'all had in front of you board dates to consider, and to also be thinking about, I told Jim to get some feedback from you, some opportunities for what you would like to see on December the 12th. You know, I made a couple of suggestions to Jim and Mike, but again, that one page I wanted to put in front of you. We do have a Northeast Texas School Board meeting on October 20th at 6 o'clock p.m. I think I get that right. Doesn't the dinner start at 6, right? And the meeting's more like 6:30? Okay. Also,
That's
there's,
Thursday night.
right. And then there's an annual team building workshop in Commerce. Becky, didn't you go with, last year? Didn't you go to that?
Yeah.
That's right. That's a good workshop. You get some hours. Please remember, we've got Veterans Day program, and I know I just want to make sure that's on November the 11th. Here, that's a big thing. And then, the board meeting in November is 1 week, it's one Monday later than normal. Normally, we're the third Monday. That's the fourth Monday because we're out for the Thanksgiving break. And then we're just kicking around some ideas about what we would like to see or have. If we want to bring somebody in. And I was just thinking, you know, I don't know. Now, if John was here, I was going to say too, a possible maybe trip to the Regional Training Academy. But I'm just throwing out some ideas, even making that the board meeting. So anyway, those are some board dates to consider and remember as you put on your calendars and stuff that's coming up. And the other, you ready to move on?
Yeah, sure.
The other, John McCullough had requested that I put together a lot of the
Dave.
information. Pardon me?
This is the night.
Oh, that's right, I'm sorry, Missy. I knew, you know what? I knew there was something. And
Yeah.
December the 9th is?
Elementary is tested in UIL here on our campus.
Another wonderful, another wonderful public relations opportunity for us in the district. Yeah, December the 9th, we have agreed to be the host for a elementary academic UIL meet on our campus. And there'll be 5, 6, 7 school districts here and pitting our, 2nd through 5th in some academic contests. So that's pretty cool. If you can have that on your schedule and you might be able to drop by for a
Which
few
means
minutes.
school will dismiss on November the 9th at half day.
Half day.
Yeah.
Half day.
December the 9th. Sorry.
What'd you say?
December the 9th, not November the 9th.
No, December the 9th, that's a Friday. It is a Friday. Okay, and the last thing, for informational purposes, you have not had seen maybe all of this together. John asked if I would put this together, and I just made sure you've got in front of you, you've got some procedures, you've got local policy. I even went and had Butch help me with the transfers for this year's, kind of some numbers in terms of grades, number, enroll, percentage, and then actually that transfer tuition, what it's bringing in, just trying to give you more information on that. And then also transfers taking the tax test, kind of giving you some information there. And then kind of our procedures, what we ask people to fill out. And and then also, I want to make sure how we handle this without giving names. There's another request on there that you would have to act on. In our policy, if we do ask for a tuition waiver, it has to be board approved. And,
I have the
do you?
letters.
Okay.
I haven't seen them.
Sure, that'd be great, bring them up. It does say that it has to be requested by the, in those circumstances, the board has to deem appropriate. We wouldn't be bringing home if we,
Yeah.
this is the family of,
Yeah, I can't think of any names, but
okay?
Yeah,
No,
thank you.
but you might wanna take
That's
your
great.
executive session, okay? All right,
Yeah.
this is just, yeah, that's fine, okay?
But it has.
All right. That's right. Okay, and that's it, that would be something you can.
All right.
We need to move on over to
He is.
Yeah.
He is.
Okay, at this time, what we will do is take a short break. When we come back, we'll go into an executive session.